I'm in my garden in my casual clothes. It's actually day one of the Easter holidays for me, so it's Thursday. You children have all been at home. Mrs. Fish has been in school, but I'm home now, and I thought I'm going to read a chapter at least. I might read a couple of chapters, so the videos after this I might be in the same clothes, and then you'll know why. Anyway, I hope your Easter holidays have started really well. Let's enjoy a bit of chapter 8. 9 reached the landing and scanned the jumble of doors. There it was, the very last door, on the right-hand side. She dashed towards it, admiring the outlines of delicate golden leaves etched into the green paint. 9 clasped the golden door handle. Find the book, grab the book, then leave. It can't be as bad as the library. All the same, she twisted the handle very cautiously and then peeped around the door. A wave of airless heat hit her as she stepped into the room. Flabbergast was right. It certainly was hot, and it was very uncomfortable. The intense heat made her feel prickly and grumpy already. She put down the orange slop bucket and looked around. An arched glass ceiling and windows extended from floor to ceiling. It was filled with plants and flowers of all different shapes and sizes, crammed into colourful pots around the room. Some were tall, some were thin and spiky, and there were small trees, all bearing bright pink spherical fruit she'd eaten. An odd black-leafed plant smelled worse than Eric's pancakes. There was an ominous rustling around. There was an ominous rustling sound behind 9, but whenever she spun round to check, there was silence and stillness, apart from some suspiciously wobbling leaves from a thick ivy climbing the wall. Ivy climbing the wall, if anyone knows what ivy is, it's like a creepy plant. So it literally, if you get it in your garden, it grows everywhere. I have got some in my garden, right down the bottom. I would take you down there to see it, but maybe another time. I'll take a picture. 9 was used to being on her guard in this house and didn't trust any of the plants as far as she could throw them, which, in the case of the huge star-flowered plant in front of her right now, wouldn't be very far. Rooted in a large pot, it had a thorny stem as wide as her body, and it was so tall that the golden and strangely pollenless star at the top brushed the glass ceiling. She gave it a steely glare. What do you think a steely glare looks like? You try one. I'll try one. Steely glare. Does that look steely? Now, where was that book? If only Mr. Downs was here, with his librarian's instinct for finding lost books. Yeah, Mr. Downs. I bet 9 must miss him, mustn't she? He would have been horrified at a book being left out of place in a conservatory, especially out where there were plants that apparently had a tendency to bite or bring out in blooming warts. There Mr. Downs, with his notebook and his permanent exasperations with 9. But he had saved her. In every possible way she could think of, he and his library had saved her. See, she's got really fond memories of him, hasn't she? Why do you think the library Mr. Downs saved her? What do you think she regarded more as home? The library or living with pockets? Yeah, the library. Back home. Perhaps she should never have left. 9's throat tightened and she pushed away the memory of the librarian and his library. This was her home now, wasn't it? Whoomp! Stomach twist, brain jump. Where were we now? 9 moved through the thick forest of plants, past a large puffy cactus, towards the windows of the conservatory. She pressed her hands against the glass and she looked outside. The house was flying through a peach-coloured sky above a rocky, lifeless landscape. As 9 turned back around, she noticed a thin-legged table on the other side of the conservatory, poking out from a bush with hundreds of tiny flowers. As she walked towards it, she saw a dark green book on the table, with worn gold letters on the cover. Magical Houses and How to Tame Them by Grimlock the Indomitable. She reached out her hand. That was all she needed. Now she could... Out of the corner of her eye, 9 saw something small whizzing towards her. Quickly she moved away from the book, just as a needle-sharp spike, the length of her hand, harpooned the table. She looked in the direction it had come from. The cactus by the window was changing colour from mellow green to a rather alarming purply red. It looked like it was tensing, drawing itself in. Then, as if it were puffing out in relief, it deflated back to its normal size, as about 20 razor-sharp spikes then came shooting towards the table again. 9 gasped as she quickly leapt forward and grabbed the book. She held it up like a shield as a handful of spikes pierced the cover of the book, landing upright and quivering. She stumbled backwards just as they rained down again, this time on and around the table. 9 plucked the spikes from the book and tossed them onto the floor. At least I have the book. At least I have the book. Probably better to leave before... There was a strange darkening in the room that nine quite... Sorry, I'm going to say that sentence again. There was a strange darkening in the room that 9 couldn't quite put her finger on. And that feeling of being watched, it was coming from behind her again. Slowly 9 turned around to see an innocent-looking starflower bending over her, the huge petals lifting up like a lid on a hinge. Sounds beautiful, doesn't it? If you're drawing it, do you make it look beautiful? Interlocking, spiny teeth opened into a wide jaws with a soft pink mouth inside. "Knew you were trouble," huffed 9. She stuffed the book into her satchel and ran for the door, but the starflower had other plans. In what felt less than a second, it had reached its long stem across the room and scooped up in its long, strong jaws, clamping down on her tightly. So the stem of the plant. We've done plants, haven't we? What is the stem's job? If we were to grow a plant, what does the stem do? Bit of science learning. "Hey!" cried 9 as she wriggled hopelessly in this grip. Thankfully, the teeth didn't quite meet in the middle, but she could still feel the jaws closing in, crushing all the air from her lungs. Taking as a deep a breath as she possibly could, 9 grabbed a spine tooth from the plant's bottom jaw in one hand and a spine tooth from its top jaw in the other hand. Her arms shaking, she pushed with all her strength, trying to prise them apart. "Oh no, you don't!" puffed 9. With a final push, she yanked the jaws apart, rolled out of the flower's mouth and tumbled back down to the floor with a crash, her satchel flopping on top of her. But the starflower was leaning over her again, jaws opening wider, wider. Quickly, 9 scrabbled beside her for something to throw. Her hands found a bucket. She shuddered as the orange slime billowed around her fingers, and she hurled the contents at the plant's giant mouth. She looked up just in time to see the jaws closing, and the starflower coming back into position, standing upright once more with a strange sound, almost like a sigh of satisfaction. Its petals looked more shimmery and golden, and there was a definite air of smugness about it now. 9 shook her head. She would never understand this house and why everything, absolutely everything, had to cause her so much trouble. "I'm watching you," 9 said, pointing at the starflower, wiping the sweat from her forehead. She picked up the now hole-ridden book, gave one last glance at the conservatory, and made her way to the door. Oh, so she's got the book. So, again, the book helped her in the first book, so all her book knowledge, all her reading definitely benefits her in this magic house that she really can't quite understand. Like us, if we don't understand things, we read a book. There's so many factual books out there, non-fiction books that are filled with facts. That's how we build our knowledge, isn't it? And 9's doing the same. So hopefully with this book, she can help hopefully resolve some of the issues, maybe the hiccuping house. So, I hope you enjoyed it. Sorry I didn't get many of the lines right. I'm only human. I make mistakes. I still persevered. We try again, don't we? So join me next time, and I'll probably be in the same clothes for chapter 9.